really wish I had like a romance-centric sweatshirt that I could wear today so that we could all be on theme. However, the closest thing I have is a romantasy reader shirt, so we're going to have to settle for this. Greetings and salutations, my friends, and welcome to a new video. Now, today's video is extra exciting for me because as of recent, I have really been in a romance kick. A few years ago, what I used to read primarily was fantasy, and I have to say I barely touched romance books in general. Found that most of the romance I was getting was through fantasy books that had strong romance subplots, but beyond that, I really wasn't consuming a whole lot of these. As of recent, I have found a joy in romance books, okay? It gives my brain the greatest reprieve ever, or in between heavier, more dense reads. A romance book really is the best palate cleanser in my opinion, and also the best escapism when I really don't want to think too much about what's happening on the daily, or even if I'm feeling a bit too chronically ill, which can definitely dampen the mood every once in a while. I've been going into romance books quite a lot this year for that level of escapism, and I feel I've compiled a really good list of 10 different books that have absolutely everything I need from a romance. I don't know about you guys, because I know that what people look for in romance books is all different. I know for me, I have got 3 different components that I'm like, a romance book needs this for it to work for me, because otherwise, not happening. First, I feel like a really great romance book, a contender for a 5-star, needs to have really great character work. I need to understand these characters through and through. What makes them as people? What is their misbelief of the world? Exactly what they like, what they dislike, what they went through prior to the relationship that they are going to establish in the book. And I mean that for both of our protagonists. I need that from the main character, but I also need that from the love interest. I need to understand who these people are individually before they enter into this partnership, because I really do want to feel like these two people stand on their own regardless of what interpersonal relationship they're striking up. Component number 2 for me is going to be a believable romance. I really need to see the chemistry between these two characters, whether it's the acts of service, the little touches, the quality time that they spend with each other. It doesn't have to be this big confession of love. I want to see them steadily build on this relationship and see them show up for each other in different areas of their life for me to believe that these two people can actually be together and stay together. For the most part, this is my trickiest thing to find, because often we'll get the character bits, often we'll get the work of the misbelief, which I'm gonna get to in a little bit, but for me, I really need to believe that these two people work together. And last but not least, I need to understand their misbelief of the world. I need to understand exactly why it is that they feel unlovable, or that they feel like this relationship is not going to work for them. I feel like every romance book we encounter has got the same formula, right? You walk into the romance, you get the meet cute, these characters get to know each other, it's all going well, and suddenly it all crashes down. And suddenly these characters want nothing to do with each other, but often books do it for like only a paragraph, only a page, only 2 pages, but then you barely understand exactly why this was such a huge deal, or more than that, it feels like it happened for nothing. It happened just for the sake of conflict, but not because the story needed it. And so if we are going to have a 3rd act conflict, which I dare say most books need, because we do need a climax, I really want to understand what are the doubts, the misbeliefs, the fears that these characters have. Do they feel unlovable? What made them feel unlovable? Do they feel like this relationship is not going to work? Did an ex make them feel that way? Did a past relationship make them believe that? Do they feel like this person is not for them? Did they see them interact with another person and now that's put into question their dynamic? What exactly fuels these characters' thoughts is something that I really, really want to see and understand, and I think all of these books have got that. So without further ado, my friends, let us get into my top 10 romance books of all time. That is a strong sentiment, a strong sentence, but let me walk you through it, okay? Because I feel like there are some good ones in here. I feel like I'm going to start out really strong here with Tia Williams' 7 Days in June. I really want to read her latest release, which is A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, because that also looks incredible. In this one, we follow our main 2 characters, Ava and Shane, who are both writers. Ava writes mostly erotica and romance books, and then Shane writes mostly literary and speculative fiction, and these 2 characters have been writing to each other through their books for decades now. They met in high school, they had a really strongly emotional week together, and they never saw each other again. Now as adults, Ava is a single mom, Shane is both a writer and a professor, and they are both dealing with their own individual set of struggles. Ava obviously parenting and also dealing with her chronic illness, as well as Shane specifically trying to show up for one of his students who is going through a really rough patch and has nobody to kind of guide him through the process. And so Shane decides to step up and be there for said student. And we see both of these characters meet again at a book convention, which was very unexpected. And it throws them not only for a loop, but it throws them into then the rest of the story as we see them restrike this relationship, this friendship that they once had, where they explore what happens then and how they can make something potentially work now. We go back and forth in POVs where we see them as teenagers, and then we also see them as adults. And what I really love about this book is essentially everything that I just mentioned, right? It's got really great chronic illness rep. It's got great single parent representation. I really loved seeing Ava's daughter and how not only she fit into the story, but in Ava's life and how they all kind of interacted with each other. I really loved seeing Shane in his element as a teacher and really help out his student, which is often something that we see in the classroom, right? Kids spend so much time at school that often teachers are doing a job that parents either don't get to see or don't get to do because they are not actively seeing these things. I also really love seeing Ava explore her relationship with her book series and how she has over time fallen out of love with her writing, but also with this particular story, but there is still so much emotion behind it that she can't help but hold on to it. And overall, I really loved seeing a realistic depiction of love where it's not always the happily ever after immediately after we meet. It's not the we kiss once and suddenly everything works out. It's more of the, hey, there are tons of things happening in my life. It's not so easy, but we can figure out how to go about this, how to navigate this, so that if we do want to be together, we can figure out the way to be so. And I love how these characters exert their boundaries and their opinions throughout the book and just really vocalizing how they want to go about relationships nowadays. I just really loved 7 Days in June. This is a book that I want to reread and annotate because I read it digitally and I just really loved this one. It was absolutely incredible. In this household, everything's about balance. So we had a more heart-hitting, really deep romance. Let me show you a little bit more of a silly, goofy time, but still such a wholesome and fun book. And that is My Roommate is a Vampire. I really loved this book when I read it. I binged it. It's such an easy read. And if you're looking for a paranormal romance that is set in contemporary times, and if you want to see a vampire who's completely outside of their time and who has got no idea how to navigate the 21st century, look no further than My Roommate is a Vampire. Now, maybe I like this as much as I did because I used to love, was obsessed with Steve Rogers. Post-popsicle era, okay, where he like has to learn how to use the phone and where he has to go grocery shopping and just do these very mundane things that he does not know how to do in the 21st century because he's been an icicle for a really long time. If you guys know what I mean, then you guys know what I mean if you read fan fiction, because I went through a phase, okay? We were locked in, and this is very much giving off that vibe. We follow our main character, Cassie, who is a struggling artist. She cannot pay her rent living in Chicago. It's a very expensive city, and she can't really find where to live because her budget is very, very small. So she ends up finding this listing online for a really luxury, beautiful, stunning, and the right side of town apartment where one Frederick is looking for a roommate at a very, very cheap price. She's immediately kind of suspicious about it because she's like, there's no way that this thing is real. This guy is either weird or a killer or both because there's just no way that he's asking for that much. But he is, and you know why? Because he's a vampire, so he's got no idea how much rent to ask for. And so she figures that even if it's kind of sketchy, something is better than nothing. She starts finding out that things are kind of weird, like there are no pots and pans, no plates, no food around the house, and she's kind of weirded out because these are normal things that regular people should have. This man really gets her a Le Creuset set of pots and pans. If that is not the standard, I don't know what is. Honestly, I want somebody to come into my life and gift me one of those sets too. They're fucking expensive. So this man goes above and beyond to make sure to accommodate her and get her everything that she may need with the help of his vampire friend. And ultimately, Frederick's goal is to get somebody to teach him about the 21st century, how to go to a coffee shop and order something, how to go out to a restaurant and not stick out like a sore thumb. And the story just goes from there. It was so comedic, so wholesome. I really loved the characters. I loved seeing Cassie just figure out progressively what it is that's happening and how to go about her own artistry and what she wants to do down the line, because she is going through that crux that all artists go through of, am I doing the right thing? Am I crazy for thinking that this can pan out into something profitable? Should I just give up on my art? Like, what do I do? And I really loved it for that reason. It's also one of those books that's not incredibly smutty. It's wholesome for the most part. I think it just has the one smut scene and it's like very minimal too. So I really, really appreciated this book. It was just such a fun time. So if you're looking for just a fun romance book, maybe this could be a one. Let me tell you something about Ashley Herring Blake. She has got the sapphics covered, okay? Because Delilah Green Doesn't Care is one of the best romance books I have ever read. I remember explicitly sitting down to read this book at the beginning of last year and just oohing and awing the entire way through, sobbing my eyes out at the depiction of Delilah's relationship with her parents and with herself as well, and how she sets a standard for herself that is impossible to meet and other people do that for her as well. I just related to this a little bit too hard and I loved every second of it. So in this one, we obviously follow Delilah Green, who is a professional photographer, and she is requested, invited, hired by her stepsister to go to her wedding to take all of the pictures, make sure that everything looks stunning, and she can just head that entire operation. Her relationship with her sister Ashley is not the best, but she decides to do so anyway, especially because she knows that with the way that the familial relationship goes about, there's no way that she can go around this without appearing like a complete asshole. And so she decides to go, and in the middle of said wedding party, she ends up meeting one of Ashley's best friends, who, if I remember correctly, was the maid of honor, Claire, who is also a single mother, and they immediately feel the sparks when they meet, and they immediately start this secret rendezvous while the wedding is happening because they just cannot keep their hands off each other, but they can't let Ashley know because they know that if Ashley finds out, all hell will break loose during this wedding. Obviously, the steam in here is really good, but that to me falls second and third and fourth and fifth in comparison to all of the other amazing bits that this book has. Seeing Delilah's relationship with Ashley be so rough at the beginning of the book and see how that progresses throughout the story was absolutely incredible. Seeing her relationship with her mom in this one as well, and seeing how rough it is and what exactly led to the spot where they're at during this book. 10 out of 10 good service. Loved how the author navigated all of that. And also getting to see both of these characters explain and sort of navigate their fears surrounding relationships and why exactly they don't think that this thing can work outside of the wedding was honestly really cool as well. But also always with the single parent dynamic, I love seeing the main character or the love interest, whichever of the two, really get to know the kid and also get along with the kid. And this one did not disappoint. The way that Claire's daughter wants to be unapologetically herself, but not knowing how to necessarily be forthcoming in what she wants or how she wants to dress or what she wants to do, or even Claire being her strict self sometimes. I love the way that she bonds with Delilah and how Delilah gets through to the kid in ways that maybe Claire cannot at times. It was just so freaking good. If you guys have not read Delilah Green Doesn't Care, absolutely suggest you doing so. It's incredible. It would not be a romance book recommendation video without some Ali Hazelwood in here. Now, I know loads of people have got a different Ali Hazelwood book that is their favorite. I have read all of her books at this point, and I don't think anything tops Love Theoretically yet. In this one, we follow our main character, Elsie, who is a theoretical physicist. However, because she has been an adjunct professor for a while, it doesn't really pay well. So she decides to open up a profile in this app where people can hire you to pretend to be whatever they need you to be for a specific event. So let's say Mel needs a fake boyfriend for a party. I'm gonna go out to the app, I'm gonna hire somebody, and then we're gonna go to the party and they're going to pretend to be my partner. And so Elsie does that in tandem to her scientist job. And then on the flip side, we have got Jack, who is an experimentalist at MIT. He rules over the physics program. And so when Elsie gets the job opportunity, the job, like the one she wants, at the MIT department, she decides that she's going to go through the entire interview process to see if she gets the position, except that the person presiding it is Jack, who again hates the type of physics that she does. But not only that, he is also the brother of her favorite client, and I just loved it so much because Jack, the way that this man is a little whore for Elsie and yet fights off his attraction left and fucking right because he thinks that his brother is with her. He has got no idea. But then the way that he shows up for Elsie throughout the book in small little ways was absolutely incredible. Elsie has got type 1 diabetes and she often forgets to like eat and she passes out sometimes. It's like a whole thing. She obviously has got to manage like her pod and take care of the medical side of things. And the way that this man asks her her how to do it because he wants to know in case he ever needs to get it done for her. These are the things that I love in romance books, is when characters really go through, again, the small acts of service, getting to know each other, they're having these candid conversations. That to me is what makes a romance story so good. That's what makes me kick and giggle, okay? And Ali Hazelwood does it all, on top of getting to know the characters very intimately when it comes to their personal lives and seeing exactly why Elsie feels so pressured all the time to make money because she needs to help her family, and does she want to help them, or is her mother guilt-tripping her into helping even though she doesn't quite need the help. There's just a whole bunch in here that I love, as well as Jack's reasoning for hating theoretical physicists. It all just works so very well. Ali Hazelwood did not miss with this one. I really need to reread it and annotate it as well because it's just so good. Got another hard-hitting one, but one that I think builds up the character so well. The character work done in this romance book is honestly top tier, unlike a lot of other romance books that I have read, and that is The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Now, this is a little bit of a forewarning that this book deals immensely with grief. It is the catalyst for the story, but it works so well to get to understand our main character, Clementine, and get to know exactly why she is struggling as much as she is at the start of the story. In this one, our main character, Clementine, is a book publicist, except that she's been kind of struggling with finding joy in her work. Although she is very proactive at the workplace and she's very good at what she does, she doesn't quite know why she's doing this anymore. She's kind of lost the definition of why she pursued this to begin with, and it's all exacerbated by her aunt's passing, who she not only loved a lot, but also who she spent every single summer with. Every summer they went out on these trips to Europe and different countries and different continents and different cities because both of them were very adventurous and wanted to see the world for all that it had to offer. And now that her aunt has passed, she finds that that strikes up very little joy for her, and it just continuously reminds her of the aunt. And then to top everything off, her aunt left her apartment that, unbeknownst to Clementine, actually has magical properties. The apartment has the ability to flash you forward or flash you back 7 years at a moment where you need it the most. And it is exactly that way that she ends up meeting James. I always mispronounce the name that he goes by in the book because I know the name is of Welsh origin and I don't want to butcher it, girlfriend. I really don't. I think it's Ewan, but I could be wrong. So I'm gonna call him James for the purpose of not grating on anybody's nerves during me talking about this book. Great, fantastic, love you, glad we're in the same page. So they end up meeting, and at first she has no idea what's happening until she figures that he is actually 7 years in the past. The apartment is the one controlling when they get to see each other or not, and these characters end up striking the deepest, most heartfelt connection, which low-key makes it heartbreaking for parts of this book because you genuinely have got no idea how they're going to go about meeting up in the future, or I guess in the present timeline, how they're going to get together, make this work. Is it even something that can work? And I love how these sort of moments and pockets of peace inside the apartment really lent itself for these characters talking about themselves and about why they pursued their careers and why they're fearful of the careers that they have chosen to pursue, and talking about their childhoods and the people most important to them, and again going through these acts of kindness and service for each other. I really loved it, and I think the reason why it works so well is because a main setting for the story is the apartment, so everything's contained to this very small space, and I think it worked so incredibly well. I also think the way that Ashley Poston navigates the conversation about grief, and how grief is not only about the thought, but it's a complete sensory experience and process to heal. It's not just about the memories you hold with the person, but it's about smell, it's about touch, it's about the things that they left behind that you can actively see, and the way that it's all encompassing sometimes, where it makes it so overwhelming and often difficult to move past it if people ever do. I really enjoyed that aspect. It was the perfect balance of magical realism with mental health and mental illness and the conversation of grief, also mixed in with a romance. It was just so good, honestly. Definitely want to read more Ashley Poston. I do have another one of her books right here that I want to be reading very soon, a novel love story. I'm hoping to get that in my September TBR jar so that I can read that, because this was such a success that I can't wait to see what she'll do in that setting. This one's a little bit of like a backward romance. Now listen, I know, I understand, I acknowledge, I divulge, okay, how toxic this thing is. However, it is a train wreck I cannot look away from. Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Let me be basic here for a second. Not that any bit of this video has not been basic, because listen, the same romance books make the circulations, okay? I don't feel like I'm talking about anything different in here. However, Magnolia Parks really captured my attention, stole my heart when I read it. I think that although it's not a book for everybody, the way that it talks about what it talks about, it does so very well, and it's also very heartbreaking in my opinion. We follow our two main characters, Magnolia and BJ, who have always been in each other's gravitational pulls. They have known each other since they were children, and naturally so, as does everybody in their life explain it, it was a given that they were going to end up dating. They do. BJ ends up cheating on Magnolia, and that is essentially the start of Magnolia Parks. We see these two people not together anymore, and we see them go about their own mechanisms that they've figured out and put into place to make sure that they are not only still in each other's lives, but that they still have got control over each other's lives and that they still care for the other. So they go through everything under the sun. Manipulation, lies, a little bit of gaslighting. We also go through a little bit of love bombing, a lot of collateral damage in the midst of them figuring out exactly how they want to move forward in this relationship. Do they want to remain friends, which they are at the start of the book? They are still the bestest of friends, or do they want to work to reconcile exactly what happened between the two of them that led to them not being together anymore? I really love the Magnolia Park series. It is every bit as gripping and engaging and obsessive for the reader, and an absolute clusterfuck as well. I just really enjoyed this in ways that I genuinely did not think that I would when I first started hearing this book and this series make the rounds, but I love this. I think that the most important thing to acknowledge here is obviously the fact that in comparison to a lot of other romance books, this is not healthy, okay? This is not a great setup for a romance, but I honestly loved every second of it because not every romance has to look the same. Gossip Girl in London, yes, but I think with that tagline, it sets up the right expectation of if you've watched Gossip Girl, then you know that these people, they're not okay. Act Your Age Eve Brown obviously made it into this list. I don't think I have ever seen myself represented, plastered on a book more than I did with my neurodivergent baby Eve Brown. This book just hit every single point with how I felt at the time of reading this and how almost inadequate and unsure I felt about the path of my life. It was not only so reassuring, but I think seeing, oh, I want to cry. Don't, Mel, don't cry. Seeing Eve be loved through all of that was just so beautiful and comforting. Like, it almost was reassuring in a way of like, girl, you may be a mess, you may be chaotic, the brain may work in particular ways, but it doesn't mean that you're unlovable because of it. And I just, Talia Hibbert, I love you for it. Obviously, we follow Eve Brown and we watch her at the beginning of the book as she has walked her life being unapologetically herself. She really doesn't care what other people think, despite her parents putting a lot of pressure on her to meet a certain quota and giving her ultimatum after ultimatum. Eve is just fully herself, and that means being chaos personified. The book starts out with her ruining a really expensive wedding, and her parents immediately give her the ultimatum of you either get this shit together or you're done. You're done. We're gonna disown you, shun you, get you away, because there's no way that this can continue. So Eve, being Eve, is very hopeful at finding a chef position at a bed and breakfast, except that when she gets there, she runs over the owner. And she still gets the job, but incidentally, both the owner and the person she ran over is now the love interest. And it is just every bit as funny and chaotic as you'd expect it to be, while still navigating the conversation about being neurodivergent and being on the spectrum in such a gentle, profound, and beautiful way. I loved every second of this. I love how Eve, arriving with her chaos, immediately throws Jacob for a loop because he's a person that's used to order and control, and nothing ever happens outside of like his limit, and Eve is here to really challenge that. And he's also there to challenge Eve in a lot of ways in terms of really planning and like settling down. And I love how these two people complemented each other so well throughout the story. But more than anything, like I mentioned earlier, seeing a lot of how I've gone through life and how I've made choices represented so well through Eve was just so freaking beautiful. It still makes me emotional to this day. Seeing her parents not understand why exactly she goes from job to job, why her opinions and her mind is constantly changing and she doesn't seem to just settle doing one thing. I just really love this one. It was such a gem. It's obviously annotated. In due time, I would love to reread and keep adding annotations to this, but Eve Brown is the superior Brown sister. I said it. Don't think that you're gonna walk out of this video without seeing an Elsie Silver book, because I've got Heartless by Elsie Silver, the best book in the Chestnut Spring series. I absolutely loved this. Think cowboys, think bull riders, think single parent romance, think chaotic main character. It is a recipe for success. In this one, we follow Cade Eaton, who is one of the oldest Eaton siblings, and he is also a single dad. In fact, at the start of the book, Cade is looking for a babysitter for his son Luke, and he cannot find anybody that meets all of his expectations. So at the start of the book, and it's important that I say it this way because there's no other way to explain it, but at the start of the book, he goes out to a coffee shop, he sees this beautiful girl standing in front of him. He's like, God damn, that girl is beautiful, stunning. On a good day, I'd approach her and talk to her and maybe take her to my bed because god damn is she stunning. And then he sees her personality. She is crazy, she's chaotic. She drops a pair of panties on the floor and he's like, ma'am, I think you've lost your panties. And she's like, ooh, cowboy, keep it. And then he gets home and his sister-in-law comes in like, hi, Cade. I have got the perfect babysitter for your kid. Boom, Willa, panty girl. It is so freaking good because immediately Cade's like, fuck no. Don't want her anywhere around because I don't think she is the one to take care of my kid. And you know what Willa does? Prove him wrong. Luke is a little fireball kid. Like, he has so much energy, so much he wants to do. He's surrounded by a very tight-knit family. All of his uncles and aunts and his granddad just allowing him to do what he wants. And he's a little spoiled but very amazing kid. And because of it, him and Willa just immediately kick it off. There is so much about their personalities that are so matched, and Cade over time starts realizing this and accepting Willa as part of the unit. And then comes the question of the attraction that obviously exists between the two of them, and Cade really questioning whether this is something that Willa wants. And I love that the book never once butts into the territory of, ooh, she's hot because she's young, ooh, I want to be with her because she's young, ooh, this because she's young. There is the reinforcement of the age gap because the book does have it, but I genuinely think that when it shows up, it does so in the right moments of Cade questioning, is this life what she wants? Like, she could choose anything else at this point in her life, and does she want the single dad? Does she want the kid? Does she want to live in a far removed farm? And does she want to live with like horses and cows and do all this? And I love that it never once is questioning her age or her emotional capacity because they're very equally matched when it comes to the emotional maturity. However, Cade is very mindful of where their lives are also different and how they may not overlap in what she wants versus what he wants. And he's very respectful in that, which I just absolutely love. So Heartless. Heartless is that girl. It's so good. One of my absolute favorite dynamics ever is rivals to lovers, whether it's academic rivals, rivals of any kind, but intellectual equals to rivals to lovers. That whole intersection, I love it. I love it because I personally know that I love like a sparring partner. I love just going back and forth, witty little quips. I personally love it when it shows up in books. I love it even more. Kiss the Sky by Krista and Becca Ritchie. Now, I know this is technically part of a bigger, really big series. It's 10 books long. Now, hear me out. I read this before I read any Calloway book. I read this before I read any Addicted book. This was my first Krista and Becca Ritchie experience, and I loved it. Edward Cullen crawled so that Christian Grey could walk, so that Connor Cobalt could fucking sprint, baby. Because this dude is absolutely everything. I love him. First of all, he rich, baby. He wears that Rolex. There was a mention in one scene where it was like, oh, he grabbed her thighs and she saw the Rolex. I was like, incredible. Give me 14 of them. Yes, thank you. So you technically don't have to read anything else before you read Kiss the Sky. I think it provides loads of context if you do, but I went into this without anything else and I really enjoyed my experience, and then I went back to the Addicted series. So in Kiss the Sky, we follow Rose Calloway and Connor Cobalt, both of which have met each other through school. They are again academic rivals. They were in the same clubs, always sparring and battling each other out through their wits, which I absolutely love. And they are now a couple. They are together. We see a little little bit of their origin in the Addicted series, the first 3 books before we get into this. So when you walk into this book, there's already a pre-established relationship and story that happens a little bit before, but nothing to the point where you do not understand. And at the start of this book, we see Rose really struggling with her brand, Callaway Couture. She is a designer, she loves it, she lives for fashion and anything to do with lifestyle, and she's struggling right now because the secret got out that her sister is actually a sex addict, and she now has to figure out how to bring her brand to the forefront of people's minds in a positive note, and she does so through, or she thinks that she's doing it, through accepting an offer to do a reality TV show with her sisters and all of their partners. So they all start living together, being filmed 24/7, and we see them navigate the everyday, the rich people lifestyle, the reality TV portion of it, which brings in so much, yes, good and stupid and petty drama, but I love it because I love reality TV. It was so good. And then we also just see her figure out her relationship with Connor, because she is in constant doubt of whether or not this is a good relationship, a relationship for her, if she's even meant to be in a relationship, if she is lovable. There is so much pressure on Rose to constantly be perfect and to constantly show up. There is so much in the family's dynamic as well that weighs so heavy on her and obviously impacts the way that she goes about daily life, because she feels like she has to be there for everybody and show up for everybody, because a lot of the dynamics are not necessarily healthy. And I really loved getting to understand, I guess, what pressures Rose and what makes her act the way that she does throughout the story, but also having that really grounding presence in Connor. The person who has got it handled, has got it together. It is such a great balancing force to Rose's internal chaos and turmoil. We get to see Rose with her family. We get to see Connor with his family. There's also the subject of intimacy in this book and being very fearful to be intimate, which I also quite like. There's just a lot in here that worked for me so well. So Kiss the Sky is definitely a good one. I loved this and it remains my favorite so far in the series. I want to reread this soon so that I can go into the rest of the series, obviously, because I still have the rest of it to read, but I'm so very excited about it because what a little gem, and I want to annotate it this go around because it's so good. And last but not least, baby, It's Not Getting Away. Funny Story by Emily Henry. What a great book. I went up and down with Emily Henry. There are books of hers that I really enjoy, books of hers that I didn't enjoy as much, but Funny Story really brought it around and gave me a 5-star book. In this one, we follow Daphne in the wake of breaking up with her fiance, because her fiance decides to get with his best friend that he is now claiming he has loved forever. And now in the wake of this breakup, Daphne has got nowhere to go, does not know what to do. And so what does she do? Naturally, she goes to Petra, the best friend's ex, Miles, to move in with him because she doesn't know where to go. And so these two end up rooming, and then on top of rooming, down the line, they decide that if they post a picture or two, or if they insinuate to being together, then it also would not hurt, because if their exes are happy together, then everything be damned, they will not appear unhappy. And this really just becomes the sweetest romance between Daphne and Miles, with these two people facing their fears in relationships and figuring out exactly what it is that they want out of a partner, what exactly it is that they need on a day-to-day basis to feel complete in regards to the romantic bits in their life, right? I really loved that in this book we saw both of our characters in the space of loving their jobs. There is no doubt in what they do. There is no doubt that they love what they do, and even though maybe their partners in the past have wanted to make them feel inadequate for what they pursued, they know that they are in the right places. And I really loved that, because I feel most romance books, to an extent, do include an element of the main character or the love interest feeling very aimless in terms of their professional life. And I mean, there are books that I've recommended here that definitely fit that quota, but I think it was really nice to see characters that are really secure in what they're doing, and there is no doubt in that regard, because I feel it erases a little bit of the conflict in the story and it makes the romance be more front and center given the circumstances, which I thought was fantastic. I also loved seeing these characters' acts of service for each other and how they show up. This really is the book of if he wanted to, he would. It's the book of I pay attention to my partner and I show up in all the ways they need me to. They don't need to ask me. And I really do love every single second of it, because both of these characters, I think, struck the most beautiful romance in this. And again, we get to see both of these characters with their families, see exactly how their families impact their day-to-day life, their decision making, how avoidant or not they are. I just think everything about this worked perfectly. Emily Henry really nailed it with this one, and Daphne and Miles have got my soul. So here we have it, friends. These are my top 10 romance books of all time. I honestly think that this list right here is elite. I think all of these books are amazing. I think that if you're ever in need of a good romance book, ever in need of some good escapism, I think any of these books will suffice greatly. I love these with every single fiber of my being. Let there be no doubt, because all of these are incredible. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a massive thumbs up and comment down below, have you read any of these books? Do you like them and love them in equal measure? What are your favorite romance books of all time? I really am looking to see what other romance books through time I'll get to read, and I feel like there's a ton that I'm either not familiar with or I just have not seen, or even ones that I may have heard of but I don't know if I like them or not. So if you guys have got any recs for me or to other people in the chat, you guys can definitely leave those in the comment section, because I'm always looking to see what you guys would rec. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already for more content like this, and if you want to support the channel further, there is a Patreon. It's always linked down below. It helps the channel massively in order to buy equipment, which can often be quite expensive. It really is massive helps towards keeping this thing running smoothly and going along. So if you ever want to support the channel further and get tons of things back, like live shows, a Discord server, different book clubs, buddy reads, hangouts, absolutely anything and everything under the sun, that is always linked at the top of the description. And if you reach the very end of the video, let us leave some heart emojis, some romantic emojis, whatever screams romance to you. Let us leave those in the comment section if you reach this portion of the video. I love you guys so much, and I will see you on the next one.
Goodbye!